good evening, everyone. So welcome to this evening's Business Environment Revision session. So this evening, we're going to look at task 5, which is looking at control accounts, reconciliations, and journals to correct errors. Okay, so within this task, it might include looking at different types of control accounts. Also, you may need to reconcile a bank statement. And also, you may need to use journals either to enter some opening entries or to correct any errors. So first of all, control accounts. So remember, we have the VAT control account, which is a liability account. So remember, anything that increases that liability will be entered onto the credit side of the account. So for example, any VAT that's owed to HMRC on sales, and anything that decreases the VAT liability will be entered onto the debit side of the VAT control account. Then also we have the receivables ledger. Remember, the receivables ledger is a subsidiary ledger that contains a list of all our credit customers. The totals from the receivables ledger are entered into the receivables ledger control account within our general ledger. And just remember, the receivables control account is an asset because it contains our credit customers that owe us money. So any increase in the asset or any increase in what our receivables owe us are entered onto the debit side of the account, and anything that decreases the asset or decreases the amount that's owed to us by our trade receivables is entered onto the credit side of the account. And then we also have the payables ledger. Remember, the payables ledger is the subsidiary ledger that contains a list of all our payables, or a list of all the company's credit suppliers. And then the totals from the payables ledger is entered into the payables ledger control account. Payables ledger control account is a liability because it's our credit supply. So when we increase the liability, when the company purchases goods on credit, it therefore will increase our liability. So it's entered onto the credit side of the account. Anything that would be entered onto the debit side of the account. And just remember that the receivables ledger, the balances, if we total up all that our credit customers owe us within that receivables ledger, it should equal the same amount that's shown in the receivables ledger control account within the general ledger. And likewise with the payables ledger as well, if we total up all the amounts that we owe our credit suppliers, it should equal the same amount as what's showing as outstanding within the payables ledger control account in the general ledger. So as well as reconciling the control accounts, you may need to do a bank reconciliation. And remember, bank reconciliation is comparing the bank statement with a cash book. So in this task, you need to be aware of the different payment methods and how they affect the bank balance in different ways. And you might be required to use a bank statement to update the cash book or to complete a bank reconciliation. And then also within some questions on journals. So it could be journals for opening entries, to record opening entries. It could be to write off any irrecoverable debts, or it could be journals for any payroll transactions, and also any journals to correct any errors that are made within the double entry bookkeeping system. So now we're going to have a little look at a task. Okay, so it says here, Deliciosha Limited is a family-run business, and they all sell a variety of pizza ovens and accessories to the general public. To date, the family have been preparing monthly accounts. It is only at the year end they hire an accountancy practice to finalise the year-end accounts, as they want to make sure everything is correct and in order. Deliciosa prepare the 2021 initial trial balance, and it doesn't balance. So the debit column of the trial balance total £200,238, whereas the credit column totaled £220,175. So when they've done a trial balance, the debit side has totaled £200,238,000, whereas the credit column has totaled £220,175. And then part A of the task, it says what entry would be made in the suspense balance. Remember that a suspense account is used when the trial balance doesn't balance. It's a temporary to make that initial trial balance until we've gone and looked back at our records and seen what errors have been made. So the suspense account balance here, so we can see that the debit side of the trial balance is lower than the credit side. So the credit side of the trial balance is that our suspense account needs to be on the debit side our balance. So we would do the difference. So we would do the £220,175 minus the £200,238, and that would give us the balance of the suspense account. So the balance is £19,937, and as I say, that will be on the debit side because the debit side has the figure that's a lower amount. Then it says here, it is important to understand the types of errors that are disclosed by the trial balance and those that are not. Deliciosa have asked for your help. So part B, show which of the errors below are or are not disclosed by the trial balance. Okay, so number one, we've got recording a bank payment for rent on the debit side of both the bank and the rent expense account. So if we draw out what they've done, so we've got a rent account, and a bank account. So they have recorded the bank payment on the debit side of both accounts, of both the bank and the rent expense account. So here, the error is going to be disclosed by the trial balance because it's not going to balance. It's got two debit entries. Remember, for the accounts to balance, there needs to be an equal debit and credit entry. Okay, so number two. So recording a payment for motor repairs in the motor vehicles account. So what they've done here, so if we draw it out, we've got a motor vehicles account, and then we would have posted the credit to the bank account. But what we've done is we've debited the motor vehicles asset account when really we should have debited the motor repairs account, which is the expense account. So we should have entered it into as a debit into the motor repairs account. So because we've entered it into the wrong type of account, this is an error of principle because we used an asset account rather than an expense account. But in terms of the trial balance, we've got an equal debit and credit entry. So therefore, the error won't be disclosed by the trial balance because it is going to balance. I'll just move these drawings out of the way. And then number 3, so we've got recording a purchase credit note on the credit side of the payables ledger control account and the debit side of the purchase returns account. So again, we're going to draw around what it is that they have done. So we've got the payables ledger control account, and the purchase returns account. Oops. So recording a purchase credit note on the credit side of the payables ledger control account and the debit side of the purchase returns account. So here we've got an equal credit and an equal debit. So therefore, the error is not going to be disclosed by the trial balance. So what they've done is they've actually done a reversal of entries here. So the purchase ledger control account, remember, it's a liability account. So therefore, to increase the liability, we credit the account. To decrease the liability, we would debit the account. It's a purchase return, so therefore that would reduce the liability. So we should have debited the purchase ledger control account and credited the purchase returns account, which is an income account. But because it's been an equal end, it wouldn't actually affect the trial balance. Yeah. Okay, so number 4, incorrectly calculating the balance on the light and heat expense account. So here, one account has been done correctly, one account has been done incorrectly. So therefore, the two sides, the debit and the credit, aren't going to balance. So therefore, the error will be disclosed by the trial balance. And then number 5, recording a receipt from a credit customer in the bank account and receivables ledger only. So they've recorded money received from the credit customer, they've recorded it into the bank account, and they've recorded it into the customer's individual account within the receivables ledger, the subsidiary ledger, but they haven't entered it into this receivables ledger control account in the general ledger. So therefore, there's not been an equal debit and credit posting. It's only a single-sided entry. So therefore, this error will be disclosed by the trial balance because it's going to cause a trial balance to not balance. Check those. Yeah. And then the last one. So recording a bank payment of £390 for motor repairs is £3,900 in both ledger accounts. So here we've got two accounts. So we've got the motor repairs which is the expense account, and then we will have the bank account, which is our asset account. Now, the payment should have been for 390, but it's been entered in the accounts as 3,900. So they've debited the motor repairs 3,900, and they've credited the bank account 3,900. So here there's been an equal debit and a credit. So therefore, the accounts are still going to balance. So it's not going to be disclosed by the trial balance. Okay, so moving on. So part B. The suspense account balance has been investigated by the accountant who has informed Deliciosa that it is due to the following error. So purchase invoice P1763 was posted as a debit to the VAT control account. And let's draw out some T accounts. So we've posted the VAT as a debit. So 3987. A credit to the payables ledger control account. So we've got payables ledger control account. It's a liability. So of course, with a purchase invoice, it's going to increase the amount that is owed to our suppliers. So therefore, it's going to be on the credit side. Remember, it's always the gross amount that is entered into. So we've got credit entry of £23,924, and we've got a debit entry for VAT of £3,987. So we've got a debit and a credit entry, but of course they're of unequal amounts. We're missing an entry. So we're missing the purchases account, which should have been, a debit entry, because purchases, it's an expense account, so therefore an increase in an expense would be entered onto the debit side of the account. So therefore, the initial posting, because they've missed out on the purchases account, they will have had to open a suspense account to make the accounts balance. And this would be the difference between the two sides, which will be £19,937. And if you remember from, so let's scroll back up, from back up in section A, we had a debit balance in the suspense account of £19,937. So that's what has been done in the accounts. Part C is saying record the journal entries to correct these errors using account names from the pick list. So you can see here down here, we've got a pick list of names in which we can use. Now, the net amount should have been debited to purchases. So therefore, to correct it, we need to debit purchases, £19,937. So we're going to debit our purchases account. £937. Then we need to credit the suspense account. And that will then remove that suspense balance. So suspense will be a credit of £19,937. So joining me this evening on the Business Environment Revision session, you will be emailed a copy of the recording within 24 hours. And remember, if you do have any further questions, you need to contact us about anything at all, please feel free to email us at aatrevision@fi.co.uk. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all next week.